Welcome to this explainer. Look, if you're building an AI right now, you know we've just been hit with an absolute avalanche of updates. Today, we're distilling all of that noise into the macro trends you actually need to understand to build effectively in mid-2026. The landscape has shifted so dramatically in just the last few weeks that if you're managing workflows or allocating enterprise budgets, the assumptions you made even 3 months ago are probably obsolete. So let's focus on the signals that actually matter.
Let's jump right in with a question that is literally redefining the entire AI landscape. Seriously, ask yourself, if the core digital fuel you use to run your business operations dropped to a fraction of a penny overnight, how would you change your architecture?
$0.0036. That tiny, striking figure is the new cost per million input tokens for Xiaomi Maio's cache hits. We are witnessing a massive, permanent price floor collapse led entirely by Chinese open-source models. For some context here, this is a 55x price reduction on cached inputs in a single announcement. It's not a temporary promotional sale, it is a fundamental, permanent shift in the economics of compute.
To make sense of the absolute chaos of May and June 2026, we're going to organize these shifts into 5 highly structured areas. The AI price collapse, the era of AI agents, Claude versus DeepSeek, the new infrastructure war, and finally, winning the agent economy.
Let's start right at the top with shift number 1, the AI price collapse. This is the catalyst for literally everything else we're going to cover today.
Just look at this massive pricing cliff. Models like DeepSeek and Xiaomi Maio have effectively made the fuel for AI practically free. We're talking about legacy output costs that used to sit around $6 per million tokens, plunging all the way down to just over 8 cents. When the underlying cost of inference drops by 85 to 99%, it entirely breaks and rewrites the math on what is possible for a developer or a business owner.
And this triggers a really fascinating economic reality, the Jevons paradox. Because this digital fuel just became so incredibly cheap, usage isn't shrinking to fit old budgets. It's exploding. You don't use less AI, you use radically more of it. One developer actually reported their token plan resetting and jumping from 200 million tokens to a staggering 11 billion for the exact same price. It's wild. And this sheer explosion in available compute leads us directly into our next major shift.
Shift number 2, the era of AI agents.
With token fuel costing literal pennies, developers aren't carefully budgeting their API calls anymore. They're deploying always-on AI agents to fully automate their complex workflows. But to make this autonomy work, you need the Model Context Protocol, or MCP. Think of MCP as the ultimate universal adapter. Instead of an AI just sitting trapped inside an isolated chat window, this open standard securely connects models to external tools. It lets an agent reach out, read your database, draft a document, push code to a repository, or even execute a trade. It bridges the gap between the intelligence and the real world.
Let's look at how this operates in practice. An agent acts autonomously in a loop, right? It researches competitors, drafts content, fact-checks its own accuracy, and repeatedly interacts with tools. Now, under old pricing models, running a loop like this 50 times a day would have absolutely bankrupted a small startup. Today, that entire continuous loop costs less than your morning coffee. The price collapse is the exact reason this era of autonomous agents is suddenly viable for everyone, not just massive enterprise giants.
Moving on to shift number 3, Claude versus DeepSeek. Because now, the crucial point is figuring out which model you actually use as the engine for these agentic workflows. Builders right now are staring down 2 very distinct AI paradigms. On the Western side, we have Anthropic's Claude Opus 4.8. It's a premium engine. It'll run you about $150 per 10 million tokens, but it is deeply reliable for production code and highly nuanced creative work. On the Eastern side, we have DeepSeek v3.2. It comes in at a mere $3.50 for that exact same workload, and honestly, it absolutely crushes Claude in pure mathematical and algorithmic reasoning, scoring up to 97.3% on the Math 500 benchmark.
So as a builder, it becomes this constant balancing act. On one hand, you have the need for premium reliability on complex, customer-facing tasks, where Claude's human-like tone, its safety-first approach, and flawless deployment-ready code are totally worth the premium price tag. But you have to balance that against the staggering commodity efficiency of open-weight models like DeepSeek. They are absolutely perfect for high-volume batch processing, deep data analysis, or running thousands of background agent loops where you literally just need raw logic executed as cheaply as possible.
Which naturally brings us to shift number 4, the new infrastructure war.
This unbelievable surge in agentic workflows and trillion token consumption is forcing a massive overhaul of the physical and digital infrastructure underlying it all. Just look at the rapid succession of massive deals in mid-2026 alone. Snowflake committed $6 billion to AWS, specifically targeting ARM CPUs, not just GPUs, because that's where the enterprise agent bottlenecks actually are. OpenRouter, the routing layer between all these models, just raised a $113 million Series B because they are now processing an astonishing 25 trillion tokens a week. And SpaceX is launching a $1.7 trillion IPO roadshow that heavily integrates xAI into its infrastructure. The big capital is migrating intensely into back-end routing and compute layers because the sheer token volume is reaching unprecedented scale.
But it's not all smooth sailing. This massive scale-up is hitting some very serious real-world speed bumps. Intense friction is coming from all sides right now. Perplexity is fighting 3 simultaneous copyright and scraping lawsuits that will dictate what web agents are legally allowed to do. Over in Europe, the EU AI Act's strict Article 50 disclosure deadline for chatbots hits this August. In the US, state-level AI compliance laws remain tangled in federal pushback. Meanwhile, geopolitical talent lockdowns are restricting the mobility of top AI researchers. These aren't just minor headlines, folks. These are the actual physical and legal parameters defining how fast this infrastructure can be built.
All right, let's wrap this up with shift number 5, winning the agent economy, bringing all these macro trends down to your micro decisions.
So how do you actually capitalize on this? The winning strategy moving forward is incredibly clear. You need to build an agent operating system. Stop making single model bets. Instead, intelligently mix and route your tasks. Use DeepSeek or Mayo as your workhorses to cheaply churn through high-volume data gathering in routine loops. Then, take that distilled data and pass it to a premium model like Claude for the complex reasoning and the polished final output. Tie the whole shebang together using the Model Context Protocol so your agents can securely interact with your data. The businesses that win in late 2026 will be the ones that orchestrate specialized agents into one seamless, structured workflow.
I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought. When the core fuel of AI is universally cheap and accessible to absolutely everyone, the competitive advantage completely stops being about who can afford the smartest AI. Raw intelligence is basically solved. Your edge shifts entirely to whoever builds the most effective, optimized systems. The engineering of how you apply it is where the future is won. So how will you build yours?